The Photography Online podcast, in partnership with King Joy Tripods.
Coming up on this month's podcast, we discuss the Mountaineer accused of faking his summit photographs, debate who was at fault when a photographer walked onto a tennis court in the middle of a match, and celebrate the iconic photography from a classic pop album. We look at a big pixel camera release from Hasselblad, find out if a new e-paper digital frame is any good, and discuss if some new, affordable large format cameras are as good as they sound.
And now, please welcome your panellists. A man whose opinions are a bit like his filters. Polarising, overused, and a bit obvious. It's Marcus McAdam.
Well, at least I'm consistent.
And a man who thought JPEG was an American rapper. It's James McCormick.
Actually, my street name is Mr. Raw.
And here to keep them both in check, it's Ruth Taylor.
Hey everybody, welcome to our September podcast, officially autumn and or spring, depending on where you're listening from. Welcome to the show. In with me this month, Mr. Marcus McAdam, sporting, if only you could see him, some sort of foliage on the front of his head. I've never seen his hair look quite so tall.
Because I haven't put any product in it today, and these headphones are kind of like pushing it all forward, you see.
He had to put his headphones in a specific place so it wouldn't distract us too much. And look at that, out the back, out the front.
Well, I have to say, Ruth, I'm a little bit jealous of that hair at the front there. I mean, I'm missing slightly, but what I'm not jealous of is his newfound fashion for very tight trousers, little ankle boots, and double denim. I mean,
how do you know what he's been? Have you been up here recently?
Well,
James?
he sent me a picture of himself, and I genuinely thought this has been AI'd because it had some kind of weird effect on it. So I actually texted his partner and said, "Can you send me a picture of him now?" And she did. And true enough, it's kind of double stonewashed, denim-y, dark, boy bandy, circa 1994 maybe.
I'll take the boy band thing, that's fine.
Mr. What, James, on the way in you said your name was Mr. Aw. Is that, I mean, that's almost boy bandy. Oh, Mr. Raw.
Yeah, no, it was a play on JPEG, Ruth.
Oh, that was your English accent, I'm sorry. Mr. O, I thought it was. Anyway, Mr. Raw and Marcus, who will come up with a boy band name by the end of the podcast, in with me this month on the podcast. You guys are all very, very welcome. We're going to launch straight on into the news. I think we've got a few stories for you this month. Story number one, Marcus, what have we got here?
Yeah, so this is one of my favourite stories we've ever done, actually. So a couple of weeks ago, last month, someone called Ronnie Rondell Jr. That's a good name for you.
That's a good
name.
Yeah. He died at the age of 88. Now, the name probably doesn't mean anything to anybody, unless you're a Pink Floyd fan. And Ronnie Rondell Jr. was actually a stuntman who was employed to model on the cover of the Wish You Were Here album. Now, it's quite an iconic photo, and some people have even said it's probably the best album cover ever shot. And if you're not aware of it, we'll put a link up so that you can go and have a look at it. But basically, it's two businessmen in suits shaking hands, and one of them's on fire. I mean, literally on fire. And the idea of the concept of this photo was thought up by someone called Storm Thorgerson. There's another great name for you.
That's another great name.
It's the environmentalist. No, that's Greta Thunberg.
Yes, yeah, he's probably Scandinavian name, but he worked closely on Pink Floyd's album covers. And the Burning Man shot was inspired by track 3 on the album, which was called Have a Cigar, which is about the insincerity of the music business. And it's supposed to depict two men sort of shaking on a deal where one of them is obviously being burned. So it was shot at the Warner Brothers lot in California because Thorgerson said it was the land of make-believe where nothing was real. So that's why they wanted to shoot it there. So when Thorgerson was explaining the idea to the photographer, who was Aubrey Powell, there's another great name for you, the photographer said, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to take a photo with a man on fire? And Thorgerson replied, we're going to set a man on fire. And this is what I love about this story, because if this was done today, that concept would just be immediately thought of as Photoshop, as we'll take the shot and then we'll put the flames on afterwards. But this is back in the 1980s, I guess, long before Photoshop was around. So everything was shot on film. You couldn't fake fire in the way that it was going to be, convincing anyway. So they doused this guy in petrol and set him on fire no less than 15 times because they had to do it over and over again just to make sure they got the shot.
So he had 15 suits just ready to go?
I don't know the answer to that, whether they used it, but he was wearing a wig which had fire retardant in it, and obviously they put this fire retardant gel all over him, and then they doused him in gasoline.
I mean, as you know, Marcus, generally the way, whenever we've done things like this, I mean, we've never set fire to anything from memory, but you start quite small if you're sensible, don't you? So they probably take one, as it were, of the 15. Let's just, a small Swanvesta of a match. By take 15, that's about as far as we can push it.
I've got lots of details here, James. So on the 15th attempt,
here we go.
The wind changed direction, and poor Ronnie Rondell Jr. lost an eyebrow and half of his moustache. And he fell to the floor, and the guys came over and extinguished him with fire extinguishers. And apparently he got up and he went, right, that's it, that's enough, I'm done. And so,
because you can actually see in the picture the wind. You can clearly see actually, because I've got it in front of me, the way the wind's blowing. It's blowing away from his moustache.
Right. Okay. So. This is another interesting fact. Because they wanted the guy on flames to be on the right-hand side, it wasn't possible because of the direction of the wind. So they had to shoot it with him on the left and make sure that they were shaking hands with their left hands rather than their right hands so that they could flip the image. Yeah.
So it's not a real image at all then?
Well, it is, but
it's been faked.
It's been flipped because there was no way of shooting it with Ronnie on the left-hand side.
Do you know what? I know this picture incredibly well because, as you know, I like Pink Floyd. It's my era. And they do look slightly awkward the way they're standing. It does look as if the handshake's not quite natural. Okay, so here's another thing. There were 15 different attempts to take the photo, and they used different cameras and different focal lengths for each attempt. Okay. And there were two that were eventually chosen, and the one that was chosen for the UK release was shot on 35mm, and the one that was chosen for the US release was taken on medium format. So that's the US one I'm looking at then, must be, I think. Well, the US one, the guy is a lot more on fire than in the UK one, which is the 35mm. And I don't know why that decision was made as to use both of them. But if you're interested in the story, if you go online and Google "Wish You Were Here" outtakes, you'll see all the ones that were never used, where there's a guy with a fire extinguisher, just encroaching in the shot, or Ronnie's falling to the ground because he's uncomfortable. Wow. So but it brings the conversation on to the fact that I just love that, because when you understand the story behind the image, it means something. Yeah. Whereas if we all knew that the flames weren't real and they'd just been photoshopped afterwards, it would be completely meaningless, and we wouldn't be having this conversation 50 years later, would we? No, we wouldn't. And the other thing, it is 50 years, because it's 1975, that picture, or the album was released in 1975. Okay, so it's earlier than I thought. It was before The Wall, basically. Yeah. So, by the way, that makes you feel old. It was 1975. Ruth wasn't even a twinkle in anybody's eye at that point. You and I had been wandering the planet for a while. But anyway, I can't remember. Ruth will remember, because being the wonderful ever-present host, we did a feature about an American photographer whose sort of his raison d'etre was to set people on fire. So if you're, I don't know, graduating from college or you're in a basketball team, he'd set your basketball or your hands on fire or something. So he was keeping it real. And I think, I'm so bad at remembering anything at all, but I think one of the things I liked about his work was he was keeping it real, and he was actually not AI or photoshopping it or whatever. And his work will stand the test of time. It's a little bit more cliched than these Pink Floyd pictures, but nonetheless they will stand the test of time. And I think Marcus is 100% right that if you just Photoshop this or AI'd it, whatever process you would use these days, then it would mean absolutely nothing. And once you then look into the backstory of a picture, it becomes even more interesting. And by the way, Marcus, I found here this chap. He worked on Dynasty, Charlie's Angels, Baywatch, Diamonds Are Forever, and The Karate Kid. I mean, what a back catalogue that is. Yeah, okay, so I've got here, and you can see if there's a link, because I spotted the link straight away, but other credits that he's famous for were doing stunts in the Towering Inferno, working on Blazing Saddles. I wonder how he got that gig. Blazing Saddles, and leaping from a burning pole in the 1963 film Kings of the Sun. So he clearly liked playing with fire. I think he probably does.
But
He's the go-to man.
Yeah, to take the conversation back to the album, this wasn't the only photo on the album, because it was a kind of like a gatefold thing. So you opened it up and there was another photo in the middle, and the photo in the middle was of a diver diving into Mono Lake in California, but without a splash. And that would be so easy to fake these days, because you just take a landscape image of Mono Lake, a picture of a diver, and just put the legs in the water without the splash, and it would be job done. But this was shot on film and they had to really do it. So the diver had to go underwater for 2 minutes with a scuba diving breathing apparatus and everything, with their legs sticking out the top of the water. And hold as still as possible, because the 2 minutes allowed all the ripples on the water to calm down. And they also had to hold their breath. So even though they had scuba diving, breathing apparatus under the water, they said they had to hold their breath, because otherwise the bubbles were disturbing the water. So again, this is all stuff that had to be done for real. And when you know this, you look at the photo and it means something, because you think this is actually a real photo of something that really happened. It's not something that's just made up on a computer. Call me old-fashioned, but I just think it was better in the olden days. But and there was a couple of other well-known iconic pieces of artwork on the same album. But then in a bizarre twist of fate, the album was actually shrink wrapped in black plastic when it was sold, so that nobody could see the artwork until they bought it.
Is that right?
Amazing. Yeah. So when it was in the shops,
did they do a first day release then? Coming in seal, in like suitcases to HMV and stuff like that.
Probably. I mean, you can remember the hype of album releases back in the 80s anyway.
For those that aren't listening, Marcus and I used to work in that little, don't know us, sorry, aren't listening. That doesn't make any sense, does it, Ruth? For those that don't know us, Marcus and I used to work in that industry a little bit from time to time. So there were big album releases, and the cover and the artwork was always a very big deal.
So, and there are still apparently copies of Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here unopened in their black shrink wrap, and they're worth a fortune when they go up for auction. But the thing is, as soon as you open it, it loses its value. I mean, what's that all about?
So what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the point of having that?
I might just buy some black shrink wrap and get an album, cover it, and sell it to somebody.
But it's bizarre, isn't it, that you spend all that money and all that time and effort doing these amazing iconic photos, setting people on fire, putting people underwater with breathing apparatus and everything, and then you cover it up with black plastic so that nobody can see it.
I mean, the whole thing about Pink Floyd was breaking boundaries anyway and doing things slightly differently, and including, where we don't need to go down particularly the route of concert production and stuff, but for anyone that's a fan of Coldplay today, they wouldn't be around without Pink Floyd all those years ago. So
I feel like I need to go and listen to some Pink Floyd. I was in a record store yesterday, and it's records, wall-to-wall records are the thing nowadays.
Thank goodness.
Costing a fortune.
You know, we don't need to give you no more education, and you'll feel comfortably numb at some point, Ruth. So,
hey,
right. Moving on to some fed up farmers. James, this is your story. What's it all about?
So these fed up farmers are not my local fed up farmers down here on Dartmoor, although there are a few of them around. They're actually Italian ones, and the reason is that influencers, that magic word of 2025 or the 2020s, are posting pictures of the Dolomites and, in theory, undiscovered areas of the Dolomites, and people are going up to have their picture taken, probably selfies, all of that stuff, and going to see it. And, we need to be slightly careful here, because we take people on trips to these regions, maybe not precisely the locations through these farm tracks, but the general area we take people. And we're all, if you're a tourist or you follow anyone on Instagram or anyone on social media, then you're involved in this. But what these farmers done is they've put in place turnstiles for you to, I presume, tap your card or pay €5, and through the turnstile you go. Now, it's not the picture I can see, it's not a particularly difficult turnstile to bypass, by the way, because you could just walk beside it, however, or climb over it pretty easily. But I think the general principle is that they're technically not allowed to charge this. It's, if you're in an Italian national park, you have a right to roam, like you guys do in Scotland. You have a right to pass through it. But the farmers are fed up with hordes of people queuing, dropping litter, doing all of these things, and this is their way of getting back. And so far, the authorities have done nothing about it. So that's in the Dolomites. But I think it's more you can open it up to, the increase in tourism to hotspots or places that people never used to go to. So people, for example, have always gone to Venice in huge numbers, but they haven't necessarily always gone to the Dolomites, even though the two are visible from each other. You've had, certainly in the run-up or during COVID and post-COVID, huge numbers of people staying home in the UK and visiting your beautiful Isle of Skye, where you both are now. So those numbers of tourists have gone up. So it's how do you manage it and how do you regulate it? I don't think it probably is. I think it's my old slight, I don't know, my opinion is probably too many people on the planet. But, what can one do about that? There's nothing that one can do about that. But all I would say
there is, but it involves shooting people.
Well, we'll leave that to other dictators. So... but I think in the end, all we can do is manage our own footprints. And I'm not talking about carbon ones necessarily. I think, we just manage what we do as individuals and what we do as a group. So the three of us here, for example, yes, we do go to some of these places and we live in some of these places. Myself on Dartmoor. Do I go out on a bank holiday weekend up onto Dartmoor? No, I do not, because it's just a nightmare. But I go up at other times for sure. So what do? Well, we try and miss the hordes and we try our best to leave no trace when we visit them. And we try to go to places that are a little bit off the beaten track. And if there is somewhere particularly spectacular or particularly sensitive is probably more the word, then we don't necessarily publicise where that is. And I think that's the only real difference to what we do to what other influencers do. And to say anything else would be marginally hypocritical.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Dolomites, James, I haven't seen a picture of this turnstile and I don't know where it is, but I can guess where it is because there's two particularly very photogenic churches which are in the same valley. And the one's called the Church of St. John, and the other one is called St. Magdalena. And they're within about a mile of each other, but you have to access farmland to get to the point where you would want to take your photo. And years and years ago, I mean, we're going back 10 years, there were no fences, there was nothing. You could wander across a field and get into the perfect position and you could take a shot. But I remember one year we were there and there was a group of about 6 of us. And this farmer did come over and he wasn't particularly angry, but he was pointing out that we were trampling on his, well, it was just grass, but he was growing it as hay for animal feed. And so we were potentially damaging his hay, and he was just pointing out, this is my livelihood, and
he's got a point.
I get people in here every day, absolutely. And I was agreeing with him. I'm saying, look, I'm really sorry, I won't come in your field again, but you can understand why we're here because it's a beautiful view. And he said, yeah, there's no right to it. And then the next year when we went back, the field was completely closed off, and he'd built this viewing platform quite, sensitively on the side of his field so that people could still take a photo. But the problem is that everyone then gets exactly the same photo because the viewing platform was very, very small and you can't move left and right and go closer and backwards. So everyone just gets exactly the same photo and you can't put your individual creativity into the shot. So you're just relying on the light basically to do something different to what everyone else has got. But of course, if you're all there at the same time, you'll get the same shot. And I would imagine that's where the turnstile is now, in that someone's trying to make a profit out of all these Instagrammers coming and taking their photos on their phones.
And I think you can understand that. There's a couple of places that I don't know if they have it on Skye, but I know they have it on Lewis, for example, where there's a farmer has turned a little area into a car park, or there's public toilets, and it's not, you don't have to pay, but you can choose to make a donation if you wish to. And I think that's probably the way ahead. And we just have to accept that, as photographers, we kind of, there can be a touch of arrogance sometimes that we think the places should just be for us. And, it's a very tricky one, really. Why shouldn't a so-called influencer? I'm not entirely sure what that is. Well, if you close your eyes and say the word influencer, what comes to mind? It's not a particularly pleasant image, really, but they have as much right to be anywhere as anybody else, really. But I think I'll just go back to what I said before, that we personally try and avoid those areas. And if we do go to them, we choose a time to go and we make sure we leave no trace.
Yeah, so this particular church, it only really works in the middle of the afternoon because of the way that light falls on it. And so we just don't bother going there at all. I mean, we haven't been there for years. So rather than go to this iconic place where you can only get one shot of exactly the same scene, we just go somewhere else that most people don't know about. And so, like you say, we've done our research, we've gone exploring, and we found somewhere that's just as good, if not better. And we always have it to ourselves, and we don't advertise where it is, because otherwise we're just creating exactly the same problem somewhere else. But you generally find that the places with the problems are all easy to access, because people don't tend to want to walk very far. So if they're not next to the side of the road, then you're probably all right, because if it takes 30 minutes to get there, then most of the people, influencers, whatever you want to call them, they lose interest.
Well, that leads us very nicely on to the next story of another bloke who didn't fancy walking very far. Who's got this story? I think it's yourself, Marcus.
Yeah, so this is an Italian mountaineer under the name of Marco Confortola. He's quite well known in Italy, apparently, although I've never heard of him, and I doubt anybody listening to this has, unless you're in Italy, maybe. But he is being accused of faking photos of himself on various summits to prove he's conquered them. And he is claiming to have conquered the 14 peaks above 8,000 meters in the Himalaya and the Karakoram Mountains, something that's only been done by, less than 50 other people in the world. But what makes his claim all the more impressive is that he has no toes, because he lost them all to frostbite when he was climbing K2 in 2008. So not having any toes, I would imagine, impedes your mobility somewhat.
It would save you time on your annual toe clipping, which is when I do it annually.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why he has so much time to climb mountains, because he doesn't have to cut his toenails. You've
always got to think outside the box. Find the positive spin.
Yeah. So a rival Italian mountaineer, there's a bit of bitter rivalry going on here, under the name of Simone Moro. He's accusing this Confortola of faking some of the photos of him standing at the summits. And the one that I've seen, which has been provided as evidence, is 100% fake, because they've provided the original photo of a guy. Let me see, it's a Spanish guy. I haven't got his name, but a Spanish guy, mountaineer, who took a photo of himself standing on this mountain. And basically Confortola's taken that. He's photoshopped the Spanish guy out, and you can even see where he's cloned the mountain where the other guy's collar was. He's put himself in the foreground, but he hasn't understood the laws of physics in terms of the fact that light always has to come from the same angle. So even though the scene behind him is backlit, he's got sun on his chin, which is physically impossible unless someone's standing above him with a mirror, of course.
If he's holding the phone in front of him, it could bounce back off
Not
the
to
screen.
That degree.
No, because it's only on his chin. It would bounce back on his whole face then, wouldn't it? But the sun on the photo of him is coming down a sharp angle above his head and in front of him. The light on the background is coming from over his shoulder. So unless there's two suns wherever he was, then that photo cannot exist. But it's very obvious, looking at the background, that it's the same photo from this Spanish climber. So he's basically faked the photo, said, I've climbed up to this peak, and whether he has climbed it or not, who knows?
With no toes.
No, because he might have climbed it and then thought, oh, crap, I forgot to take a photo, our fake one. But, we don't know what the story is. Anyway, but this guy, Confortola, he's being very stubborn about it. And in an interview, he's denied that he's faked any photos. And he said, and I quote, I know where I went and what I did. And presumably that doesn't mean he knows that he went and sat down in front of a computer and turned on Photoshop.
Okay. It's an interesting one, because like you say, he could have climbed it, but the fact that he's apparently faked his photos has ruined the whole, it doesn't matter if he's climbed it, that's gone as well, because he's decided to fake another element of the adventure. But I've not seen the original photo there. It looks, at first glance, it looks realistic enough, but
this goes back to the same argument. I mean, there's a theme that's been running through the Photography Online podcast for the last 2 years, and that's the fact that we can't use photos anymore as as markers of historic events, because there's so many of them are fake. I mean, I know we're not talking about this, but just the other day, I sent you guys a photo that was supposedly taken on St Kilda of the evacuation, and it's completely AI'd. And this is a historical event that's supposed to be taking place, and yet we're looking at a complete work of fiction as a kind of like a marker of history. It's pathetic.
Yeah, I saw that picture, and I think nearly everyone that would see it would go, oh, it's AI, and then with someone's just trying to, like somebody would draw a picture of something that happened, trying to illustrate what it was like.
I think Ruth, I have to say, Ruth, I have to say, I think you're wrong about that. I think because you work in photography, you would think that. I think a lot of people looking at that picture wouldn't think it was AI. They would just take it for granted that was a picture that was taken at that moment.
Because a lot of people now, they use it as like an illustration.
And that's okay if you do that. But you've got to write a profit for illustrative purposes. The Misrepresentation Act, something I work in every day in my commercial world. You cannot do that. You can't do it.
You can't do it.
And conversely, when the younger generation, like my daughter, look at a photo of a guy on fire on the album cover, they just assume that it's fake, and there's no appreciation for it. And so there's no winners from this game of, faking photos. The viewer suffers and the photography suffers, so there are no winners.
Right, well, speaking of winners, and I don't know if it's an intentional segue or not, Marcus, probably not, but our final story that we've got in our news section today, all about a photographer who did ruin, according to one of the other participants, a rather important match for someone who's on this. James, tell us all about this.
Well, first of all, this is about tennis. Well, the story's based around the sport of tennis, something I don't know a lot about, really, I'm afraid, because although I'm a big fan of Wimbledon, I'm a fan of the croquet side of the lawn tennis club. Well,
Lordy.
Ruth, don't put your head in your hands, please. Croquet is a much more interesting. Yes, it's not the lawn. It's the Lawn Tennis and Croquet Association of Wimbledon. It's not a tennis club at all. So.
Oh, they conveniently dropped that part. I don't think anybody really knows that.
But anyway, I know nothing about tennis because it's really boring, and I'd rather spend my time playing croquet and watching cricket. Two very thrilling and exciting things. Who's put a sound effect in there? Somebody did. That was Ruth for the listening audience. That was Ruth's sound effects. Anyway, the story is, Ruth, and I'm sure people have seen it. Mr. Medvedev, a tennis player, got very, very upset, and who cares why and what points they were at. But the principle is, a photographer in between, a first and second served, walked onto the court and was absolutely lambasted by the US, I think it was in the US Open in America, by the US Tennis Federation or whatever they call themselves. The United States Tennis Association organisers took away his credentials, banned him, threw him out, and all of this. He says, I was waved onto the court by a security guard. And you have to have a little bit of sympathy for that. If the security guard says, yes, you can make your way across the court into what's called a pit, which is a low-down area for photographers to take their stills from, fine. But you know what? If you're a professional, have a look. And if you're a professional tennis photographer, you should really know where the game's at, and the security guard might be waving you at the wrong time. So just because somebody says cross the road, you don't just cross the road without having a look, do you? And it's as simple as that, really. So I have no understanding of tennis, no empathy with the tennis players because I couldn't care less because they don't play cricket. And I have very little sympathy for the actual photographer himself, because at the end of the day, if you're in a professional environment and that's your job, do your job properly and double check. Don't just take somebody else's word for it and then blame some probably lesser paid than yourself security guard for your fault. It's his 100% his mistake, the photographer, and he should own it, I'm afraid. So
it did go on to affect the outcome of the match, though, didn't it?
Yes, it was something to do with second serves, and I believe the chair umpire got something wrong, but I got so bored reading about tennis that I gave up.
Mr. Research up there in the...
Well, they're not even playing on grass, and they play on that blue court and their shoes squeak all the time. It's awful.
For goodness sake.
Well, it's
anyway,
true.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, if there's squeaky shoes, who can watch that?
But according to the guy involved, basically threw his concentration and scuppered the rest of the match.
And if it was, if it was a croquet match and a photographer wandered across, it could easily throw one's concentration. So I have a degree of sympathy, but I think he broke 4 rackets or something. So he's
got his own issues.
I don't know whether he went. I lost interest reading it, so I don't actually know who won or lost. But the wider point is, you can't, as a professional photographer or a professional anything, but in this instance, photographer, you can't just wander across the Louis Armstrong Stadium without paying any attention to what's actually taking place in the match.
Well, I know neither of you are sports photographers, particularly James. Maybe you do some croquet photography, very fast shutter speeds involved, I'm sure. But have you ever wandered into a working environment or anything similar as a photographer and kind of gotten in the way or anything like that?
Yes, I have got in the way a couple of times. There's one little thing that comes to mind for me, and it was drummed into me I was probably 17 at the time. As an assistant, I used to have to make notes about every time my boss fired the shutter. And he would shout, plus a stop, minus a stop, because he was shooting to film. So we would know at the end of that roll of film, we'd mark it, process it, or clip test it, which means you process half the roll of film or, a frame of the roll of film, plus or minus a stop or plus or minus a third of a stop, blah, blah, blah. So I'd have to make notes about every single frame. And I would also have to watch and make sure all the lights that were firing. So in other words, I had to be incredibly aware of what all of the surrounding are, all the lights firing, because you can't see until, the film comes back from the lab. And then you find out that the backlight is not firing and the portrait sitter, for example, has no backlight to them. So there was an instance where I was on all fours. There's a picture for you. Picture this, Ruth.
Well, I've seen that on many occasions, James. So,
yes, I know. Well, anything to find a contact lens or pretend to be looking for one. So I was on all fours behind an opera singer who was sitting on a stool. And shall we say, the stool wasn't sufficient. So I'm behind her and I'm watching with my boss, who's shouting, plus a stop, minus a stop, whatever, or I'm opening up, closing down, whatever he's doing. I've got my little notepad, my jolly happy shopper jotter notepad and my pen. And I do remember, actually, I ran out of ink. So I was kind of, the way you scratch into it, scratching, oh my God, the pen's ran out of ink. So it's etched in my memory, this scenario. So I'm behind this opera singer on all fours, making notes, watching the lights to make sure they're firing, the backlight particularly, because that's the one you can't always tell if it fires or not. And the other reason that the lighting, this is what brings us nicely back to how long image fakery has been going on. So the singer was a lady called Montserrat Caballé, who was a very sadly passed away, very large opera singer. And she was being shot for an album cover of duets she did with another singer called Jose Carreras, a Spanish opera singer. And they were being shot at different times. They weren't in the same room at the same time. So the lighting had to be exactly the same so that you could then get 2 prints together and photograph the 2 prints together or 2 negatives together, and you'd basically paint out the central line. This was before Photoshop, and you'd have them as if they were on the same album cover. So that's how it was done back in the days if you couldn't get people together. So anyway, being aware of my surroundings on all fours behind Miss Caballé, I noticed that the stool was beginning to buckle and she was getting a little bit lower. My boss, being an obsessive type, hadn't noticed this at all. And before you know it, the stool was buckling altogether. She slightly stood up and she was unable to take her own weight because she was a very large lady. So I just threw the stool out of the way and she sat down on my back. Thus, I've had back problems ever since. But I continued like the trooper I am, making notes, making sure the backlight was firing. And she just said, I think she said gracias in Spanish at the end of it, and with her 2 helpers disappeared over the horizon, never to be seen again.
How did you hurt your back, sir? Well, let me tell you a story.
Montserrat Caballé sat on it. But the funny thing was, I explained all of this
to your chiropractor.
To my chiropractor, no, to my boss at the end of it. And he was quite a character, and he hadn't even noticed this. He was so obsessed by the actual photography that we did Jose Carreras afterwards. So we actually got a new stool, and cut the legs off because she was slightly lower in the final shot, sitting on my back, than she was on the stool, because of the perspectives and everything had to be exactly the same to create what's called a copy neg of two images together.
So if we go through the archives and source this album, do we see little McCormick's feet and hands?
No, it's down to sort of mid-level. No, there's not the top of my back and my perched little young backside sticking up. No.
How about yourself, Marcus? You ever ruined or gone into a working environment or without realising what you were doing?
No, because I'm far too professional for that,
yes.
Ruth. But I would imagine that wedding photographers do it all the time, in that they're so focused on getting the photo during, say, the vows, that they stop considering the environment, and they'll end up standing right in front of the couple so that nobody can see them, or I think we did a story before.
We did,
about wedding photographers who've been banned from churches because they were just being inconsiderate. So I'm sure it happens all the time. It's just that this particular one happened to be televised and during a major sporting event, but it will happen again.
I'm sure. And if you want to find out more information on that, I'm sure there's video footage of it anyway, somewhere. You can get links to all of those stories in the show notes, whatever podcast platform you're listening on. But we're going to leave the stories there, I think, for now, and move on to the quiz.
The Photography Online Podcast Quiz.
Yeah, welcome back to the Pop Quiz. It's our Photography Online podcast quiz where I ask our two panellists, Marcus and James, 5 photography-related questions. And of course, you guys can play along as well. Wherever you are, we will reveal the answers at the end. Now, a couple of the questions this month, be sent in by one of our listeners.
Ooh.
So thank you for those, Andrea. And I'm not going to mention which they are because Marcus and James are always too thrilled to slag me off for them. So a couple of them from Andrea, thanks. There'll be 5 rounds as ever, each one being worth a point for the correct or the closest answer. In the event of a tie, both guys receive the point. The winner gets a little bit of admiration from me, not too much. It's a pretty big deal. So just before we get started, I just wanted to play this, which as I was editing the podcast last month, this tickled me, and I thought Marcus might appreciate it.
I can't win now, can I?
Want to hear that again?
I can't win now, can I?
Yeah, all right.
He just sounded so very sad when you said that. I thought that's classic. Anyway, let's start off.
Round 1. Multiple choice.
All right, so this round I'm going to ask a question which is fairly difficult. So to help you out, there are 4 possible answers. All I need you to do is tell me which one you think is correct. Here's the question. Should not be difficult for you guys. What does APS-C stand for in photography? Now, is it A, Advanced Photographic Sensor, Compact, B, Active Pixel System, Crop, C, Adaptive Photo Size, Classic, or D, Advanced Photo System, Classic?
Oh my goodness.
I have no...
No,
Am I allowed to say I have no interest again, Ruth?
No, you're not. This is becoming too much of an excuse for you, McCormick. You've got to be interested. Do you want them again?
Yeah, go on. I do, yeah. I'm taking this seriously.
Oh, I can tell. You're leaning forward.
I've got a pen and paper. Look.
Oh, look at this. He's learnt. It's only taken 8 podcasts. Advanced Photographic Sensor, Compact. Active Pixel System, Crop. Adaptive Photo Size, Classic. Or Advanced Photo System, Classic. A, B, C, or D. Fellows?
I know I can rule one of them out for a very simple reason, but I'm not going to say that now because I don't want to give James an advantage.
I don't mind anyway. I'm just going to write down a load of letters. E.
It's funny because it's four letters that we fling around a lot, but it's surprising how we don't think about them. Anyway, that was round 1. Let's move on.
Round 2. Name the year.
Alrighty, in this round, the answer to the question is a year. The round goes to whoever gets the closest answer. If either of you gives me the exact year, you will get a bonus point. Not sure if anyone's done that to date. Here's the question. In which year was Magnum Photos founded?
Oh, that's a James kind of question.
I think, yeah. Some facial contortions going on. Magnum Photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, both got something?
Yeah, see, the thing is, in the past, I've always gone too late. So I'm going to go with my guess and minus 10 years off of it.
Right, okay.
I've got nothing to add to that comment.
Right, okay, let's move on then.
Round 3. Artificial intelligence.
All right, I know you guys love this round. Yeah, groans are starting already. I asked ChatGPT, so you can blame it, to describe a photographic object, person, or practice without mentioning the name of the subject. All I need you to do is tell me what did I ask it to talk about, and I will give you a clue. This is a person.
I am a photographer known for capturing striking human portraits, often in rich, vibrant colors. My work focuses on people and cultures around the world, frequently in conflict zones or remote locations. One of my most famous images features a green-eyed girl from Afghanistan, which became iconic worldwide.
That's not very difficult, is it?
I can't remember.
I was like, James was looking quite confident until what I would deem the most obvious
and then
clue.
I realised I was right, and I just can't remember.
I mean, you could have just used the last line of that and we would have got it.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I just thought, it might not be enough without that. Knowing you guys, you'd be like, oh, that could be anyone. It could be this person or this person.
Anyway.
Yeah, okay. No cheating, guys. No cheating. They obviously know who it is. That's AI. Let's go to take a wild guess.
Round 4. Take a wild guess.
Well, as the name suggests, it requires an answer which could be almost anything, so you're unlikely to get it exact. You need to take a wild guess. As with round 2, the point goes to whoever gets the closest to the answer, and if you get the exact answer, there are 2 bonus points to be had. Here we go. How many workers are sitting on the steel beam in the iconic lunch atop a skyscraper?
Okay. I mean, I know the photo.
There's actually several versions of that photo.
Oh, here we go.
I'm just saying, there are.
No, it's been proved to be a fake as well. But yeah.
Well, you need to explain that because it's technically not a fake.
Well, no, because the background wasn't the background.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
It is true. When I was in New York about a year ago, there was a whole thing and they showed the original photo with the one that's been sold as the original one, and the background's completely different.
All right.
Well,
Taking a guess.
Okay.
I like the fact that when I first did it, James started counting on his fingers like he was visualising the image in his head.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's just going to be take a wild guess.
A wild guess.
That
exactly
should be the
what
title of this round.
It should.
Okay, done it.
James, you got something?
I'll write a number down, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Round 5. Where in the world?
All right, this is a geography question. As much as a photography one, the location will typically be a well-known hotspot for photography. Here we go. Known for its earthquake-resistant stonework, this abandoned village was only occupied for around 100 years, but has stood strong for over 500. Once thought to be only inhabited by women, it attracts over 1 million visitors each year since it was brought to international attention in 1911. No tripods are allowed in the village. Where is it?
Okay.
Hearing a pen scraping.
Well, it's the women thing that's confusing me.
Once thought.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my answer, but I'd never heard of it being a women-only place.
Yeah.
James, you got something?
Yeah, I've written it, yeah.
All right, excellent. Okay, I think we've sped through the quiz this month, which is fantastic. All right, well, let's go back. Let me find my round 1 questions over here. So round 1, multiple choice. We had, what does APS-C stand for in photography? What have you got? You both got it written down this time, so there's no shenanigans going on.
Yeah, you see, okay, so I always thought that APS, right, forget the C, APS stood for Advanced Photo System. Okay, so you would have thought that APS-C would stand for Advanced Photo System Crop, but that wasn't one of the things that came up on your list, I don't think.
No, it was not.
So that's
everything that came up on Ruth's list and everything you've just said are combinations of the world's most boring words all put together.
That's how photographers name things.
But so it kind of threw me. It kind of threw me because I thought I know this, and then the answer didn't come up, and so yeah, I put C. I just panicked and put C.
Okay, James.
I put A, just because it was the first letter. I mean, it won't be.
Right.
It'll be B or C because I know the way your mind works, Ruth. So it'll be B or C. I'm going to change it to B. I'm changing to B because I do.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah, no, I'm changing to B.
Final answers?
I don't remember what B was, but yeah, B.
Okay. You're all wrong. It was D. I love the way you try to analyse how my mind works. Advanced Photo System Classic, APS-C, the classic format from the old APS-C film system, now used to describe digital sensors smaller than full frame.
Okay.
That is the correct answer. So you now know if any of your students ask you,
Yeah.
Sir, what does APS-C stand for? You'll be able to give them the correct answer. So there you go.
I would just say it stands for a cheap camera that nobody wants to use.
Yes, that's how to alienate half of our listeners.
Move on, Ruth.
Ignore Marcus. Name the year. In what year was Magnum Photos founded? Chaps, let's go to James first, and don't give an explanation, just give me your thing.
I generally don't know. I don't know. I just guessed I've written 1930, but I did crossed it out. Oh.
I'm only 2 years away. I've got 1928.
I wrote 1920 and changed to 1930.
Okay.
There it is.
Well, in terms of the closest answer, that would be James. It's actually 1947.
Is it after the war?
It was after the war,
Yeah.
which I probably would have guessed as well.
But
2 years.
The tricky thing about that is they put a load of war in their archive. They took a load of pictures back from
Archival
photographers
stuff
that they first took into Magnum, and they archived stuff. So
you see, Ruth, I originally went for
Here we go.
1938, and I thought, right, previously I've always gone too late, so I'm minus 10 off of it, and I shouldn't have done that. Otherwise, I would have won the round.
You would have got the round. Well, I mean, I could offer an extra bonus half point if you can name the 4 photographers who founded it.
I thought you were going to say all the flavours of Magnum. I was going to think, right, well, you got mint,
Classic.
you got classic, you got the white.
That's the best one. Yeah. Can you name any of them? Anybody know who formed Magnum Photos?
No.
No.
Well,
really? None of them?
No.
Okay, so Robert Capa,
Yep.
Henry Cartier-Bresson,
They're all books that are there. You can see it there.
George Roger and David Seymour, known as Chim, all scarred by the conflict. They were both motivated by a sense of relief that the world had somehow survived and the curiosity to see what was still there. That's apparently how Magnum Photos was founded. So there we go, 1947, Jim. I'm going to call you Jim. Jim gets the point for being closest, although still way out on that one. Anyway, round 3, artificial intelligence. Who did I ask a ChatGPT to name?
Steve.
Go on.
Muck
Oh, he's got it. I was hoping that he couldn't remember.
Curry.
I'm assuming Marcus has got the same in that case. All right, well, both get the point for that one. It was Steve McCurry. Very famous image. Number 4, round 4. Take a wild guess. How many workers are sitting on the steel beam on the iconic lunch atop a skyscraper?
Go on, Marcus, you go first.
I've got 28 because it's definitely more than 12 and it's less than...
Oh, my God.
It's less than 50.
One of us is vastly wrong. One of us is wrong. I've got... What did you say you've got? 20?
28.
28. I've gone for 12. I've gone for a dirty dozen.
No, it's definitely more than 12.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 11.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I mean, it doesn't really get any better, really, does it?
Have you been drinking? Are you seeing everything double?
He was looking at the fake photo and the real photo, I think, according to that. Apparently, according to my information, real workers, real beam, but obviously it was a publicity stunt as part of a campaign to promote the skyscraper itself. But Marcus, you say otherwise.
Well, I thought that it was... Yes, that it was semi-faked because they were workers that weren't necessarily steel workers, but they were the ones that were happy to go and sit and have a publicity picture taken. But they weren't genuinely on a break. It was all very set up. So I thought that was the fake element of it. But yeah, I don't know if Marcus believes it's... I haven't thought about that picture in years.
Yeah, no, I can't remember the details, but it's something to do with the perspective of the background. It's the camera's pointing down on the workers, but yet the buildings in the background are all perfectly upright, and there's some weird trickery that's gone on there.
Maybe he shot on a 5.4 or something. Then I don't know.
Yeah, all the information I've seen online is a real image, but
anyway,
obviously.
What's important is I get the point.
This is true.
Next.
Yeah, congratulations.
This means I can't win. I'm just a born loser. Everyone's been right.
I'm just a born loser. We can clip that as well.
Yeah. Everyone's been right for the last 54 years, calling me a loser, and I've just had to accept that they are right.
Yep.
Genuinely starting to feel quite sorry for him. Didn't think this would happen. All right, well, you can slightly redeem yourself. Round 5.
I've not got this one right, I know that.
Okay, where in the world, round 5? Show me your paper, both of you, because you said you've written it down. I'm still not entirely
Well,
trusting.
I'll tell you, at Machu Picchu, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's
where
what I've
else.
got. Look, I've got Machu Picchu. Look, there you go. See?
I mean, it's South America.
Oh, yeah, see that.
So, you know.
Yeah, well, you are both right. It is
Okay.
Machu Picchu.
I didn't
and yes,
know.
that was
Yeah.
that was just a random fact. It is true. They did at one point think that it was a woman only, and that was because I think some remains that were found, they were all of a certain stature. They were quite short basically, and they basically thought it was women for a while until they found other ones around the same period and realized that actually the Incas were just slightly on the short side. So they did believe that for a little while. Built in the 15th century, abandoned in the 16th. Have you ever seen the pictures of the before? When after they found it, before they cleared all the jungle away from it.
I think
kind of assumed
I have, yeah.
they'd walked over the ridge and there it was, and the sheep had kept all the grass clipped. Obviously, it wasn't like that. There was a huge amount of clearing away of jungle before they actually found all that. Anyway, it's fascinating. So there we go, Machu Picchu. James, 4 points. Marcus, 2 points.
Not bad.
And here's my... let me just update my list again.
Can I tell you my Machu
September.
Picchu story?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, you said no tripods are allowed.
Yes.
Well, I've taken a shot there with a tripod because I remember going in or trying to get in very early in the morning with a big camera bag and a tripod. And the security guards was basically saying you can't bring that tripod in, and I said, well, that's a problem because the camera that I've got has to be used on a tripod. You can't handhold the camera, and they said, well, we don't allow professional cameras in either. So hopefully you haven't got a professional camera. And I went, no, it's not a professional camera, and opened my bag to show them my GX617 panoramic medium format camera. And they were kind of laughing at each other. And I said, look, you see, you can't hand hold this. It has to be used on a tripod. So I have to take my tripod in. Anyway, I managed to sweet talk them and I did get away with it. And I've got this amazing photograph of Machu Picchu with nobody there. Well, there were people there, but I timed it so that the few people that were there were all behind walls when I took the photo, just as a beam of light comes down, illuminating the thing. So what I have is, I think, probably quite a rare photo because it just shows a completely empty Machu Picchu. It's on a tripod, it's medium format. It's beautiful.
You would not get that nowadays. That's quite impressive. The
Yeah.
stories you hear about people who are, they're chased for the smallest thing, just trying to, wearing long dresses, being identified as influencers, which isn't allowed apparently to wear, I don't know, what they call costumes up there. So yeah, interesting. Didn't know you'd been up there. We can, I was going to say we can post a link to your photo, but that's easier said than done. Anyway, congratulations to James on that. If you manage to score higher than James, do let us know. And like Andrea, if you want to submit any questions for any of the rounds, please do send them in podcast@mc2photography.com. And thank you to Andrea for the 2 that she sent in there. If you enjoyed playing along at home, I will be back with a brand new set of questions next month.
The Photography Online podcast in partnership with King Joy Tripods.
Yep, all the Photography Online podcasts this year in partnership with King Joy Tripods. Now, Marcus, I've heard you talking about a couple of exciting new developments that are going on at King Joy. Can you tell us anything about those?
Yeah, I think all tripod companies are kind of, they've hit the wall in terms of developments with the tripod itself, because it's a very simple implement, isn't it? It's 3 legs that extend and collapse, and any attempts at kind of bettering that have kind of fallen foul of the common sense side, really. So
you can't reinvent the leg, can you?
You can't really. So I think they've just accepted that the 3 legs are the 3 legs, and they just made them as good as they can, and they're really easy to use, and the twist locks are nice and buttery, and the legs slide out and slide back in without too much problem. So they've turned their attention to redesigning some new and exciting heads. So I've got a prototype here of a new ball head, which they're working on, which is very good. And what they've done is and something that I've been suggesting to them for many, many years, and you'll appreciate this, James. On most ball heads, not just King Joy ones, but any brand of ball heads, you'll have the main tension knob, which releases the tension on the ball, and then within that knob, there's another friction knob to control. What's that all about? Because
is that rhetorical?
Well, I mean, I've yet to meet anybody who uses it It would be like me coming to your... the analogy I always use...
No, that's not true. Can I correct you?
Go on,
you
then.
are not yet to meet anyone that's used it, because lots of people on workshops have used that and on varying brands of bullhead, have tightened it and then cannot untighten it.
Yes, but so I used it well for the purpose that it's designed
Correct.
for. Okay, so it would be a bit like me coming to your house and saying, listen, your kitchen tap, I know you've been using it fine for years and years and years, but I'm going to put something on it that's much better, and that is a tension knob so that you can't open the tap too much and too quickly.
It's quite a good idea, actually.
No, it's not. Okay, it never needed to be there. It's completely pointless. And so they've done away with it. Finally, they've done away with it. And their argument was always, we can't do away with it, because if we do that, then the competition has got something that can boast about something that we then have not got. But I think they finally kind of cottoned on that nobody likes it. And it does actually introduce a lot more problems, because people, like you say, they get it stuck.
Yes, it introduces 2 or 3 problems, doesn't it? One, there's something else to go wrong, obviously.
Yes.
And 2, the faults people have with them in the field using tension is either, as you just said, it's too tight or it gets stuck. Worse than that, it's too loose. And suddenly the whole thing's flipped over or fallen down, and the lens has knocked the weight of the camera's knocked the tripod over, or it's pinched somebody's skin, which is the most common one I've always seen with people.
Yeah, so but basically it's now just a tension knob, and if you want less tension, you turn it a little bit more, and if you want more tension, you just don't turn it quite so much. It's not rocket science, really. So we've done away with the middle bit, but they've redesigned the head to be more compact and more, crucially, more lightweight, because it's got less elements and components in it now. And then there's also a geared head, because I think, and this is me predicting the future here, I think that the geared head is going to be coming back into fashion with a lot of photographers.
That's all I use, as you know.
Yeah, and for the last probably 20 years, people have tended to favour the ball head, but I think the geared head is making a comeback. And so I've basically given them a design which I think is innovative. And when that comes in, which we'll be showing everybody about it. But I'm actually going out to China, probably May next year, to have a look around the Kingjoy factory, because they've got a brand new factory out there. It's something staggering. Like, they make 40% of the world's tripods. So,
Wow.
if you're in the US, for example, and you go to Adorama, which is a well-known retailer, or you go to B&H and you buy one of their own branded tripods, it's made by Kingjoy. You wouldn't know that, because obviously they've put other branding on it, but they make all the GoPro tripods, and the list is quite long as to all the different brands that they make tripods for. So you've got this huge factory. And I think it'll be quite interesting to go out there and see the production line.
That'll be fascinating. Are we going to film that for the show?
We will do, yes, certainly. If I can work out how to film and present at the same time. I have to have a selfie stick. They do love us.
Yeah.
In fact, Kingjoy makes selfie sticks as well. So I won't even need to take one with me. I can just pick one up there.
Well, if you ever wanted someone else in your suitcase, I'll come along and help you with your selfie stick. Anyway, if you want to know what else is available in the Kingjoy professional lineup, do check out the Photography Online shop if you're here in the UK, or go to kingjoy.com for international sales, or to find out your nearest dealer. All right, let's move on.
Listeners from an unlikely location.
Yeah, we do like to say hello to listeners from unexpected parts of the world. Quite a few people listening. I don't know how I missed this before. Quite a few people listening last month in India. So namaste, I believe, to you guys. One person there, James, has given you a bit of a bow there. You can't see him.
Okay, Ruth, let's go back. So there's many languages in India.
Okay,
In fact,
I picked one.
I've just looked this up. 19,500. Languages, different and dialects, but there were 22 recognised languages. So the chances that you got the right one there, good luck.
Okay, right. Well, if they happen to be top again another month, I'll pick another one of the 19,200.
I think you've just said Hindi, but there's also Bengali, which would be the second most popular language.
Hindi's the biggest language, to be fair.
Yes, I think so, yeah. So,
right, well, thank you.
Do we know, by the way, do we know how many listeners in India?
I did not take note of that, actually, no.
Okay, because it is now the most populous country in the world. So if we knew how many listeners, we could divide 1.4 billion by however many listeners and work out the ratio of listeners we have there per population.
You and your maths, right? For next month,
Yep.
if they're still in the top section, we'll check that out.
And
One
if
person
anybody is still listening by that point.
Yeah, we should have just a special mini math section for Marcus. One person listening in Saudi Arabia, which is cool. So Merhaban, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, close, James,
Yeah,
close.
yeah. It's my favourite bit, this.
Merhaban to you. And back in the US, we've got our US state count. So we only actually had 4 states who didn't listen to the show last month: Montana, West Virginia, Rhode Island, and Hawaii. Aloha to nobody
aloha,
listening in
yeah.
Hawaii. Or it's goodbye as well, so maybe it works. These are the only states not tuned in last month, so we need to get those guys
We never get
in there.
anybody from Montana. It's very, very disappointing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go and do some features on, I don't know, horseback
I
riding.
think we should just go
or...
campaigning there.
So we could say camping.
Is it a swing state for us? It might be one of the swing states.
We'll check that out. Anyway,
think it is.
wherever
It's not.
you're listening
It's not.
from, always glad to have you. UK top, I think, as usual. US second. Canada, I think, close behind that. But it's always fun checking out the various stats and stuff. More of them next month. Do get in touch, though. Let us know about yourself. Always interested in where and who is listening. Podcast at mc2photography.com. You can, of course, leave a comment on whatever platform you are listening on. Speaking of some comments from last month's podcast, we were talking about the Flex Tilt, which is a tripod accessory. I think it's a tripod accessory on the gear section last month. John got in touch. He said, I've used a Flex Tilt for about 2 years for my macro photography at ground level. It works absolutely brilliantly. Roger, we were talking about magazines which are going in and out of business, basically. He said, I have in the past had subscriptions to such august magazines as Amateur Photographer, that was my first one too, and Outdoor Photography, but realised they all seem to be on annual repeat cycle. Same subjects, all presented differently, reoccurring in the same month every year. Presumably, if you don't subscribe, you wouldn't notice that if you just pick it up occasionally. But I began to find it irritating, so I stopped my subscriptions, and on finding photography online, I realised my money was better spent on subscribing to Peel, where real people presented varied and interesting subjects with knowledge and humour, much better than the printed word.
Yeah, not so sure about real people, but...
Or
Yeah,
knowledge
me
or
neither.
humour. But other than that, it's a very well-written email.
Well, the humour's there, it's just not intentional.
This is true, and I have to say, I do enjoy the printed word as well. But yeah, a mixture of the both. Anyway, Alan, on the same vein, Alan saying P.O. is the only magazine I'll ever need, now I found it. Mike Faulkner got in touch by email. We were talking about adding security to the Canons, adding passcodes. He says, I own the Canon R5. I was quite excited when I heard this news that there was going to be some additional security. I do agree with the points raised. I installed this update, but disabled it after several hours. I found it a pain to have to input a 7-digit password every
Is that
time
what
the
it is?
camera woke up. It would be far better, I know, the light's gone, far better if password protection was for each time it was switched on.
Wedding's over, the light's gone, your portrait model's walked out, everything's...
Anyway, maybe some sort of Bluetooth protection could be looked into instead of the password input. So thank you, Mike, for that. That was relating to, as I said, the story about Canon in our news section last month. If you haven't listened to last month's podcast, you can, of course, go back and check it out. So have a wee look at that. And do keep your feedback coming. As I said, comment or email podcast at mc2photography.com. Now, we do have a fancy jingle for this because this is like a wee thing we thought we'd add in, especially for this month, a wee mini feature. I popped a question up on our socials, on Facebook and Instagram. What is the most overrated photography?
Thank you. That could be the jingle, Ruth. We just need to put a little bit of music underneath that, and we've got it.
Do you know what? I'm very distracted. Just do what you did again there. Go on. Because Marcus, as he was saying that, go on, do it. He had his headphones like tipped forward, and he was just playing with his, I think it was curls that were kind of blossoming out the side of the headphones.
He is the most irritating person on the planet to work with. If he's not doing that, he's banging at his keyboard or squeaking his chair.
Who bangs his pen against his... Anyway, you've gotten better at that. Anyway, yes, the question, what's the most overrated photography trend you're convinced people are just pretending to love? Or just basically photography trends that irritate you from socials. Andrew got in touch. He said Photoshop and Lightroom, it's as if they are the only editing suites in the universe, when clearly there are others that are good, if not better. Benzel said the blurry /ICM wedding photos that seem to be around at the moment. Don't really understand that. Brian Nicholson, crazy FPS, frames per second, and even pre-capture. He's not a fan. Jimmy Vision, I've got to say, I love this. I hope that's his real name. I'm sure it's not, but I love that. Jimmy Vision vision, shooting everything out of focus all the time and calling it an original style. That gets his goat. Rohan, he says, I love film photography, but I think the photos with gigantic light leaks, missed focus and terrible exposure for no implicit creative purpose other than that I want to. That probably wouldn't age well. Ray said digital. He thinks it's a trend that he doesn't like very much. We did have a few saying analog as well. Not many, just a couple. And Gemma, I think, had the best one. She said, people having differing opinions on a subjective art form. And now I don't think
definitive
that's a trend that will ever...
she means.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitive opinions. It's not a trend I think is going to go away because photographers often seem to be at each other for one reason or another. So Marcus, hoping this section is not just an excuse for a moan fest from yourself, but what have you got to say about the matter? And I'm sure there is much, so try and restrain yourself.
Yeah, no, I can summarize it into one thing really. It's blending of multiple images, whether it's focus stacking, HDR, panorama stitches okay, I'll come back to that in a minute, but 99% of it is completely pointless. And I have a theory here, and the theory is that people who do this, they focus stack and then they do, a 3-row panorama stitch of, an HDR blend it as well. They're bored with photography, and so they're trying to introduce. Or their partner. They're trying to introduce much more to the workflow rather than just turning the camera on, pointing it over in a general direction, getting the composition right and pressing the button. That's not good enough for them. And I get that. That's why I shoot film. I get that. So they're thinking, right, that's too easy and it's not giving me what I want. So I'm going to complicate the situation. And rather than just take one photo, I'm going to take 27. I'm going to spend hours merging them all together on the computer afterwards. And if that does it for you, then great. But there's so many times when I see photographers posting online saying this was a merge of 14 photos, HDR, panorama, and you look at it and you just go, well, you just wasted your time there because you could have just taken that in one shot very, very easily. It's just people doing stuff when there's no need to do it, but they think there is a need to do it, and that's the problem.
But like you said, maybe it's the enjoyment factor of actually some people like messing about with
well then
Lightroom, Photoshop.
Just shoot film, job done. And then you've introduced all the extra bits that you got to decide which film you're going to shoot depending on how much.
Ruth, I can clarify this because I half agree with Marcus, although I totally understand that people want to have fun fiddling around, building Airfix model kits or merging 4,000 pictures together. It's the same thing. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. As you frequently criticise me for my croquet habits, whatever floats your boat, that's fine. The issue here is that for those people that merge pictures that aren't taken at the same time, as it were, so you see, there's a Milky Way above, I don't know, Stonehenge or something. Well, it probably wasn't anyway, but even if it was, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And then they go, it was a separate exposure to shoot the stones and everything. That's not a photograph. So don't call yourself a photographer. Call yourself a
digital artist.
Digital artist. Call yourself something else. It's not. You are not a photographer, and you have not taken a photograph. End of subject. That did not happen at that time.
Words.
Well, it didn't happen at that time, so it's not a photograph unless you want to rewrite the OED or pick your own dictionary from wherever you are listening in the world. Your own Hindi dictionary, for example. I'm pretty sure that that's not what a photograph is. It's a digital image. That's a different thing.
Took things within a couple of seconds of each other, though, just to get the various things.
Yeah, so, you could argue
exposure.
You could argue that ICM might be... that's not an accurate representation of what happened. That's like an impressionist painting, ICM, for example. But it's closer than actually using more than one image, which is shot across a series of time. And you might say, okay, if you want to get really pernickety about it, you could say, well, actually, I shot my Milky Way, I don't know, on a 30-second exposure or something, or 15-second exposure. And then I shot my foreground on a 1-minute exposure, and I blended them together, and somebody else has shot some ICM or some movement in water or something on a 5-minute exposure. So technically speaking, that those two images, by the time you've 15 seconds and a minute blended them together, it's quicker than a 5-minute exposure of water or traffic trails or whatever. So you can argue all of those points, but as soon as you start blending more than one image together, it's not a photograph. It's just not. It's something else, and it has value.
It's a montage that consists of individual photos, but what you're saying is the end result is not a photograph.
It's not a photograph, and it's not a moment in time.
So if you're exposure stacking all within the space of like 3 seconds.
So what's your margin of time? That's my point. You could focus stack. Yes, absolutely, you could do it in 3 seconds.
Well, that's what I mean. You're just doing it to immediately get those exposures correct.
But that's not a moment in time. That's 3 moments in time. If you're, it's not.
Who said it's a moment in time? It's still a photograph.
No, it's several photographs all stacked together to it's not one moment that's given within the capabilities of whatever camera you're using. So
your thing is you only enjoy looking at a single moment in time. You don't enjoy looking at it over 3 seconds.
No, I enjoy looking at potentially, I mean, I don't, but I could pretend to enjoy looking at photo stacked images or another picture of the Milky Way above Durdle Door with, I don't know, whatever, someone's horrific signature in the bottom left or right hand corner of the picture. But it's not a single image. It's not a photograph. But it's nothing to say it's a bad piece of art. That's a very different thing. But it's not a photograph.
So I said I was going to come back to the panorama stitching thing. Now,
which you have done yourself.
Which I've done myself, but I've only ever done it when there's a need to do it. So, for example, when I got contacted by a local business and they said, can we buy one of your photos to put on the side of a building? I said, yeah, that's fine, but I need to know how big you want the photo. And he said, well, we want it 21 metres wide. And I went, okay, how close are people going to be able to get to this photo? Is it going to be like really up high and a long way away? And he went, no, it's going to be at street level. Right, okay. So I said, there's no photo that I have that is of that resolution that's going to stand up to be seen that close and that big. So I said, I'm going to have to go out and shoot something specifically for that. So for that, I went out and I shot a panorama image with my 50 megapixel camera and I stitched 9 photos together. And I ended up with a shot that was 17,000 pixels wide, and then I interpolated that up, and we got to the right size. So there was a reason to do that. But I always see other photographers, and I'm not going to mention any names here, but James will know exactly who I'm talking about if I say that the subject was Old Harry Rocks in Dorset. And he had posted this photo that he'd taken a number of different upright photos of, and said, I've merged them all together, and this it was for social media. Okay, so it served no purpose whatsoever. I'm looking at it on my phone. He could have just done it in one thing. But what made me laugh is when you looked at the horizon, it looked like a 5-year-old had drawn it, hand drawn it, because it just wasn't straight. It just went up and down. We're talking about a water horizon here, when you could see where all the photos. So he'd spent all that time merging all these photos together and ended up with a result that was absolute garbage, and the only place for it was the bin.
Can I just get you not to mince your words, if that's all right? Just say what you really think.
That is what I really think. And, that's why I don't want to name them, because I don't want to embarrass them.
No, I know. Well, I agree. I totally agree. And I think...
Because this is someone who teaches photography.
But like HDR imagery, which was all... I don't know, everything was HDR'd 5 years ago or something. I think this multiple stacking thing will probably, merging of images will pass.
It will.
And one of the reasons it will pass is because people will see that there's no need for it. It's pointless. And they will have also, there's only so many times you can flex your muscles about how many pictures you stitch together before people get bored of it. But
it won't pass until something else comes along to replace it. That's the problem.
Well, yes, that's true, because at the moment, it's being done to replace a lack of creativity anyway. So that's the only reason
it's being done to replace HDR blending. So now we've got focus
and or a lack of creativity at the time, and that's just a shame, because really, for me, as I said, a photograph is a single image. There are places, as Marcus has described, in commercial work for multiple images, but it is a single image, and it documents a moment in time, and it also, for the photographer, it documents where they were at that particular second. So for them, it's creating a memory as well. So, I don't know, flexing on your computer, baring your muscles, baring your chest and beating it like an ape in Photoshop is not worth it, in my view. It's not. They're not pictures. That's the thing. They're works of art, but they're not pictures.
But if you enjoy doing it, if you enjoy the process of doing it, then go ahead and do it, because that's what photography is all about. It's all about the enjoyment.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do what you enjoy.
Yeah, you have to find your comfort zone for sure. Absolutely, you do. But don't be influenced by other people, including us.
Including Marcus and James, and people will be terrified to mention they blend anything on any future workshops. But anyway, that's Marcus's chance to have a wee bit of events, and I don't know if we'll bring this feature back, but we might. You never know. And there was a lot of opinions.
Now we've got the jingle,
well.
Ruth. I think it would be a shame not to reuse that.
Well, that's true. That is true. Anyway, let's move on to our final section.
It may be new. It may even be exciting. But does the world really need it?
All right, it's our gear section, looking at some stuff. Got quite a few today, actually. First off, Marcus, what is this?
Okay, so I have the Nissi Wizard Camera Bracket. And what this is, it looks a bit like, when you get a rotatable shoe for a telephoto lens. A collar, I think they call it a collar, and it clamps around the actual lens, and then on the bottom of that you put that onto the tripod, and then the lens can rotate within that collar. So this is similar to that, except for the lens doesn't actually attach to the collar. So it's got a kind of like a camera mount on the back of it. The lens goes through a circle, but it doesn't actually touch the circle. So it's not being supported by the lens. It basically just, what I think it does is it changes the center of gravity of the camera and shifts it slightly more over the head of the tripod. But I'm looking at the page now, the Nissi page, and I'll read you some of the kind of like the selling points that they're trying to convince me of to buy this thing. They say it allows quick rotation of the camera between portrait and landscape orientation. Well,
why don't they, if that's the case, and I'm looking at it as well, why don't they show a picture of the camera in a portrait orientation?
Very, very, very true. But with my setup, I don't have a problem changing from landscape to portrait orientation in less than a second anyway. So this is basically because of the L bracket that everybody puts on their cameras, and then they put that into the thing, they tighten it up with the Arca Swiss thing, and then they think, oh, I need the other orientation. So they then have to undo the Arca Swiss thing, turn the camera through 90 degrees, redo it up again. It's a pain in the ass. So this basically compensates for the stupidity design of an L bracket. The next one down, James, you'll like this, provides a more stable center of gravity. It doesn't say more stable than what, though. It just says more stable. So we're not comparing. I mean, more stable than what? An elephant on a waterbed? I mean,
there's a nice image.
Yeah, but you can't say it provides a more stable center of gravity if you don't say what it's more than.
Well, I use an L bracket anyway, and sometimes I'll use a longer shoe, so it doesn't provide a more stable centre of gravity than a longer shoe, which I can adjust to be perfect.
Okay, so it's fully compatible with all tilt and articulating screens, but then it goes on to mention that there's a long list of things that it's not compatible with. So, yeah, it's £75, or just, 10 pence short of £75. There's 4 different models, depending on what camera and lenses you have. But my main criticism of this is that they seem to be selling it on the fact that the centre of gravity is over the ball head and therefore gives more stability. In theory, kind of makes sense. But every time you change the lens, the centre of gravity is going to move anyway. So what are you going to do?
Well, I don't understand how that can possibly be true anyway, because you can't move the camera position. It's fixed. You can't move the shoe's very small that fits on the tripod.
Yes.
So if you were to put a big long lens on this, even a 70-200, then it's not the centre of gravity is not going to be increased.
No, absolutely. So, you change the lens from a wide angle to a long lens, and you can't shift the camera, or there seems to be no way of doing that. So it's then going to be front heavy still.
So what I reckon, Ruth, is you can utter those immortal words.
Does the world really need this?
No.
No, I was just checking out the reviews when you were talking, and I thought, well, there's 3 5-star reviews, and then I realised actually 2 of them are from the same person.
What, Mr. Nissi?
And the third one has also got the same first name, and it's got like an anonymous face. So possibly the same guy who really enjoying his, and I genuinely think it's amazing. So you guys can check that out for yourself, of course, if you need to. Show notes has got links to all the stuff we're going to be talking about in our gear section. So have a wee look at that. This next thing, now I have seen many's a digital photo frame advertised in various places. But when this one popped up, I thought, well, actually, this is quite a simple yet possibly very good idea. James, tell us all about this one.
So what it is, it's yes, as Ruth said, it's a digital photo frame in varying sizes, but that you can upload your pictures to by just tapping against it via Bluetooth, I presume, or you can choose one of their pictures that they have the rights to. So if you want Van Gogh sunflowers on your wall, you can put that in there. But the other thing it does is it has a different texture to it, and you can change the surround of the photo frame as well. So it's more like a paper feel to it. It's an okay idea, and it is quite a nice idea. It's a bit, idea, and it's the sort of thing that you could have as a replacement for the fridge, where you put your pictures of your family or your pets or whatever on there. So I can see the idea of it, but I would want to see one in person to see if it's any different to the other digital photo frames that are out there. So in terms of, does the world really need it, until you were to see one in person, I can't really answer that. But it's a neat enough idea, and if you can't afford to buy your own Van Gogh or Monet, then it solves the problem.
If you can't afford to buy... James is living in a completely different world, I think, back there. But I mean, I was looking on the website just now, and apparently the first drop, as they're calling it, is completely sold out. So you need to wait a little bit to get one. But it just looks more realistic, basically. All the digital photo frames to date have been quite,
shiny.
Shiny, exactly. And even the cables trailing out the back, they just look a bit cheapo. But this looks nice.
But it's cute. It does look cute, and it's probably worth keeping an eye on it. Does it have a price? Did it say? Oh, no, I'll click the little tab. Oh, for goodness sake. Now I've got to scroll. I wish I'd
one in the basket.
This. Well, pre-order and save 30. Doesn't actually say how much it is. So if it had been under a tenner, I would have thought about it. Oh, no,
here we go. It's £279.
We're not getting one, Ruth, sorry.
Oh, come on, James.
No,
not even from really good up until Christmas.
No.
Rats. Okay. Well, anyway,
we'll
it's called
reserve
e-paper.
judgment.
Yeah, the reflection frame is what it's called, and it's like an e-paper, so a little bit different. And yeah, I would like to see one in person. I'm not sure, maybe one of the trade shows or something, they'll have them. Or maybe someone will send us one, but probably not. 279 quid.
No.
Check it out. Something apparently a little bit more affordable, Marcus. This is right up your street, and when I saw this announcement, I thought, yeah, you're the man. What are these?
Okay, so I think you might be talking about the new affordable large format cameras that are 3D printed, and they're from a company called Custom Camera Building. So not very innovative on the company name there, but at least it does what it says on the tin.
Says what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. So they are releasing a number of, I guess you call them large format cameras, because the biggest one is 8x10, and they've got a 5x7, 4x5, but then they've got a couple of medium format cameras as well in the shape of a 6x12. So that would be a kind of panoramic camera, and a 6x17, which is obviously definitely a wider panoramic camera. So on first glance, these are just basically 3D printed camera bodies, and then you attach your regular large format lenses to. But when I was looking more closely into this, the appeal seemed to dwindle quite quickly, because let's just take one of the large format cameras as an example. Now, a traditional large format camera would have a bellows, and you would basically put the lens on the front, and you would be able to focus it by moving the lens further away from the film plane. These haven't got that because they're 3D printed. So each lens has to have its own cone. And so if you wanted to, say, put a 150mm lens onto a camera, you have to then buy the cone for 150mm. And then the focusing is done by a helicoid thing on the front, which is what most cameras use, where you twist it, and that it kind of has a screw thread on it, and the lens moves a little bit further away from the film plane, so you can focus on closer subjects rather than just infinity. So if you were going to have 3 lenses, you therefore have to buy 3 different cones. And when you start adding all of this up and then put a ground glass on the back, it actually gets quite expensive. So it's not so affordable as you might think, because when you first look at it, I'm not going to give you prices here because there's so many different cameras and variations, it gets very confusing. But for the camera alone, you're looking at between about £300 to £500 or US dollars. But that only buys you the camera. You can't use that. You then have to get a lens, which is going to cost you however much a lens costs you. But then you have to get the cone for that lens, and then you have to get the ground glass. And by the time you've added it all up, you think, well, I might as well just gone out and bought a regular large format camera. So I'm not really seeing the appeal of this, to be honest.
They do look quite cool, I've got to say.
They do look quite cool. However, have you ever heard of a company? This is a Canadian company that we're talking about here, but there's another company called Chroma Cameras, which is a UK-based company, and they have pretty much been doing this for 2 or 3 years, maybe even longer. And their products, I think, are much better than this because they're just more. You've just Googled that, have you?
Yeah, yes, so those are pretty.
If what I'm describing to you now, you're thinking, yeah, well, that sounds quite good, just go to Chroma Cameras and look at their website, because I think they'll give you a better camera for a better price, and it's a lot simpler in terms of how they use it and everything. So, yeah, they are out there.
Those are cool.
Yeah, if you want to get into large format or, like buy a 6x17 panoramic camera, they don't cost the world anymore because you can 3D print these things, and then the lenses aren't that expensive, or they don't have to be that expensive. So you can, and of course, if you want to do pinhole photography, you don't even need to put a lens on. You just need a cap with a pinhole on it, and you can take photos without a lens that are perfectly acceptable. So there's lots of fun that could be had here, but I just don't think that the article that I'm looking at here that basically makes out that these are innovative, new, affordable, large format cameras. Well, it's been done and is being done by a company which I think offers a better product, and they're not so affordable because they're modular, and by the time you bought everything, you need to go and get a new bank loan.
And bag.
Yeah,
and
put it all in. True. So yeah, good in theory, but not in practice, I would say. And yeah, look at Chroma Cameras instead.
Okay, well, I'll put links to both of those actually, because I hadn't heard of Chroma Cameras, and yeah, on my very quick Google, they're very cool.
Yeah,
so we'll check
if I was buying one for myself, I would definitely go down the Chroma Camera route.
All right. Fantastic. All right, a couple of new lenses being released, James, from one end of the spectrum to the other. Tell us about these.
Yes, so Sigma have brought out a 200mm f2 DGOS sports lens. So it's clearly a very fast 200mm. Start again, a very fast 200mm lens, and it looks quite nice actually. The other one they brought out is I think it's part of their art series, contemporary series, I beg your pardon, and it's a 12mm 1.4. So there are a few little, as always with these lenses, these sort of so-called third-party lenses, there are a few little things to be aware of. So the 200mm only works with the L mount and Sony E mounts, which is still a bit of a shame because it's quite an interesting lens, actually. I wouldn't mind having a look at that lens and playing around with it. Anything that's very wide, has a very wide aperture like that and a long focal length is always interesting. And it also opens up possibilities. So you could easily, with a converter on the back of that, turn that into a 400-2.8 lens, in theory. Now, that might be fun, but at the moment it's only available on those 2 mounts. But the best thing about Sigma of all is that the quality will be there. So that's great if you are a Sony user, for example. You can trust the quality. And Sigma will constantly push what they do. They're constantly inventing and bringing out new lenses, which is really cool. So that's a good thing. The 12mm lens, it's compatible with E mount, RF mount, and Fujifilm X mount. I'm just reading here. It's 12mm, 1.4. It would make a very good astro lens, I would imagine.
But it is only for cropped sensors, right?
It is. So you'd have to factor that into 12mm would turn into
about 18, 17, 18.
I was going to say 17, yeah. So 17 or 18mm, but still f1.4, if it's as sharp as all other Sigma lenses, all other Sigma lenses of the last 10 years or so, then that would be a hell of a lens for those that like to shoot astro. And 12mm is pretty wide for that mount.
It's certainly wide enough. I think the sweet spot for Astro is probably a couple of millimeters either side of 20, so that falls into that range.
Yeah, often the stars are too small, right, and everything's too small, and there's too much foreground or whatever. But I mean, you know, they certainly have it would have it if you're an astrophotographer and you are shooting with that particular sensor, then this would definitely have its place in your bag, this lens, for sure.
Okay, so James, the 200mm obviously and the 12mm, do you have prices on either of those?
The 200mm is going to be in the region of 3,000 and the 12mm is going to come in at around just over 500 at the moment.
Okay. And that's the contemporary and the sports lenses, respectively. So again, check those out if they sound interesting to you. Our final gear item for Does the World Really Need This? Is a brand new camera from a maker of amazing cameras. Marcus, I think, is ever so slightly. Are you excited about this? I can't quite tell.
Well, okay, you'll make up your mind as I go through this. So we're talking about the Hasselblad X2D2. So this is a medium format camera. The original X2D was released about 3 years ago. And so it's been, 3 years in today's world is probably about right for an upgrade. And so this Mark II version of the same camera has just come out. Do you know anything about this, James, at all?
I know more about the previous version because remember we were talking quite a lot about it because I would love to try one out. So.
Yes, okay. Well, let me tell you what's been upgraded, and then you can see if you think it's been a good upgrade or not. So the sensor is exactly the same. 100 megapixels, and it's the thing that puts me off all medium format, so-called medium format digital cameras, is the ratio. They're all 4:3 ratio.
Yep.
And for some reason, that just doesn't sit well with me. And I know it's only a personal view because some people would love it.
Well, it's not a personal view, is it? Because we know why that is. It's because of our generational thing. And it's kind of our generation likes a different aspect ratio because we grew up looking at pictures of different aspect ratio. The current generation looks at things on phones and tablets that are often square and scrolls up and down. Yeah. So it kind of falls between the two aspect ratios, really. And it's kind of hard sometimes to make it actually work. And the last time I saw one of these I was with Ruth, actually, and it was being pointed at her. Was that one of those? She was strutting her stuff. She was modelling. Honestly, you should see the way she walked down that beach. And you should
see the way James was directing. Up there, twist this way, eyes to the lights.
They're good pictures, though.
They were really good.
They are really, really good pictures. So it was one of our clients that had one. But I agree that the aspect ratio, do you know what, if they made it square, then I would actually go and buy one.
Either make it square or make it 2:3, like every other camera, But it's kind of like
every other camera. But just make it 6x6, please. Whatever it costs.
Can you not just crop it afterwards? Just think square and just do
it. You can, but then why are you spending all that money on a 100 megapixel camera?
Well, also, Ruth, the adverts that they run for these, because I first came aware of it because you know what it's like if you hover on something in one of your social media feeds, hover at your peril because you'll then be bombarded. And then I messaged Marcus about it, but what brought me to mind was that their advertising for this from Hasselblad themselves is, take a random picture of a scene. Oh, and look what you can do. You can crop in. Are you thinking, why don't you just walk closer to it or change your lens? Why? Well, I mean, it's the most moronic, and if you're listening, Hasselblad, moronic is the word, piece of marketing.
James isn't going to get a camera to
actually put the camera. I know. Well, I don't care. I'll buy one if I need one or want one, which I don't. But I would be interested to try it out because it does look like a fantastic piece of kit. And when our guest was photographing you with it looked, I was impressed with the results. It's quite hard to use. This is the previous version, so we'll let Marcus go back to the updated version in a minute. But it is an impressive piece of kit. But the marketing of it, it's not the camera that's moronic necessarily. The marketeers are morons. Yeah. You take a picture of a mountain in a distance and then you crop into some bloke who's standing on a ridgeline and you using 1/16th of the entire. I mean, it's just so stupid. It's beyond it. But anyway, back to the X2D Mark II 100C.
Yeah. So obviously I'm doing my research for this and I watched a couple of reviewers doing their thing online. And these are people who are Hasselblad users. So they're, supporting the brand. They're not trying to find fault with it. And right at the beginning of the review, bearing in mind they're talking about the Mark II camera compared to the Mark I camera, they're coming out with things like the aspect ratio is really good for Instagram. And I'm sitting there thinking, really, are you going to
Hasselblad.
Are you going
That's
to buy?
harsh.
Are you going to buy a 100 megapixel camera to take a photo and then post it on social media? What is wrong with you? Seriously. And the other comment that they were making, this is right at the beginning, by the way, is that the grip, the texture on the grip has been improved.
Oh, has it?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really big. I mean, I might go and buy one now because the texture on the grip's been improved. Anyway, but you'll see the reason why they were struggling in a minute. So the original camera, frames per second, it used to take 3.3 frames per second. That's the original X2D. So bearing in mind this is the Mark II version, what's the frame rate now, maximum frame rate now, James?
Oh, well, I know it's clearly not going to be. It's going to be the same, is it?
It's 3. It's actually gone backwards.
It's gone backwards.
Same sensor, same size, but it's a slower camera. So we've actually gone backwards in terms of frames per second. Now, Hasselblad are quoting an improved battery life. However, the 2 reviews that I've watched independently have both said that the battery life is worse because rather than getting 420 photos out of a battery, they're now only getting 360. So the camera's drawing more power because it uses the same batteries.
Yep.
So we've got, even though they're claiming it's got increased battery life, it's clearly not the case.
So where's the power going? To autofocus?
No, apparently the screen is brighter, and the screen is one really good thing because I have seen the screen, and even in bright sunlight, you can see it very well. So the screen is very bright. So we've done. Another selling point was that the shutter button is orange.
Nice.
That's another really big important thing. Now, one thing that has been improved, and no one's going to argue about this, is that the autofocus is much better.
Yeah.
But that's not because it's good. It's because the original was so bad that it couldn't have possibly got any worse. Now, on the back of the Mark II, there's now a joystick that you can control, because on the original camera, I don't know if you knew this, James, but the only way to change the focus point was to tap the screen.
I know, because those pictures I was taking of Ruth and the guest was taking, well, the reason I ended up taking some of them was because he couldn't see. Because it was a very bright day, and I was going, "What are you doing? Why are you looking at the back of the camera?" I was going, "Shoot now!" There was clouds coming. Do you remember, Ruth? It was going to absolutely hammer it down with rain. I was going, "Can you please? I've given you the exposure. Get on with it and press the button." And he was fiddling with the back of the camera because he couldn't see it, and that's what he was doing. He was moving the focus point.
Yeah. So can you imagine how frustrating that would be from a user's point of view? Is that you're looking through the viewfinder and you think, oh, I want to focus over there. You have to take the camera away from your eye, tap on the screen, then put it back to your eye again. I mean, honestly, photography is supposed to be about enjoying the process, and that does exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
It just makes it a pain in the backside. So they've now got a joystick on the back of the camera so you can move the focus point without taking it away from your eye. That's a good thing. But, you know, it's only as good as every other camera has been for the last 20 years. So we're not talking about anything innovative there. It now boasts continuous autofocus because the original, believe it or not, didn't do it.
No, I know.
So
that, yeah.
on a moving subject, it couldn't follow, whereas this one now can, and they're bragging about it as though it's like, wow, this is a new thing. Well, I'm sorry, but my 5D Mark II from 2005 did that. So you're 20 years behind there. It has an improved flip out screen because apparently on the original, the screen, when you flipped it out, it was partially obscured by the viewfinder housing. Yep. So they've got over that problem. It has customizable buttons so that you can, assign different buttons to things. It's got a new base ISO of 50 instead of 64. No big deal there. 10 stops of image stabilization as opposed to 7 on the original. So that's been improved. But again, it's in the marketing, like you just said, James. They're now kind of trying to market this as you don't need a tripod.
Yes.
Because you've got 10 stops. And so you don't need a tripod anymore. You just walk around and hand hold it and shoot up to 3 or 4 seconds and get pin sharp shots. And yeah, great. But that's not what a tripod is all about. A tripod's about so much more than just providing a stable platform for your camera.
Well, in the same way that number of megapixels, it's about using them, not just shooting from wherever you're standing and cropping it in post. Yeah. That's not photography.
The final thing that they seem to be jumping through hoops about is it's got an HDR mode. So it basically takes a a shot. And
yeah, we should get you one then, because HDR mode would go well with your double denim,
Yeah.
because they're both distinctly out of fashion.
oh god, but it just all this is it's tools to enable bad photographers to take better photos.
Well, I don't
That's
even
what it
mind
is.
that. No, I don't think it does, though. I don't think they do take better photos, so-called bad photographers. I just think there's nothing wrong with this camera. As you know, the predecessor, I would like, to try one. There's other Hasselblads I would rather try, but I was interested by it. It is slow. It was clunky, the predecessor to this. So if they sped up some of it, great, i.e. the focus and things like that, that's good. But I don't know, it just seems an awful lot of money, and people are not being encouraged to use this camera in the right way to maximise what this camera is all about. And that is a shame, because this camera is a true photographer's camera, so don't put an HDR mode on it.
Exactly. So the HDR mode, the reviewer that I was looking at, and he was saying, look how great this HDR mode is. He was taking a photo of a subject in the most horrendous light and basically saying, this camera can now deal with this. And that's completely the wrong mindset, because you should be thinking, okay, that's horrendous light. I don't want to take a photo of that. I want to wait for the light to get better before I take a photo. So if your camera is encouraging you to take photos in hideous light, then that's clearly not going to take you in the right direction to becoming a better photographer.
Well, and if your marketing of this camera, and no doubt the brochures that come with it, encourage you, because, what do we say to people? Zoom with your feet where possible, unless there's a very good reason not to, for compression or focal length or whatever. But we always say zoom with your feet, and then zoom lenses became much better, so people don't always have to quite so much. But, still zoom with your feet or use your zoom lens. Now it's saying just stand still, this camera, and we'll just crop it afterwards. Yeah. And then stick it on Instagram.
And don't worry about if the light's bad, because we'll just put it into HDR mode.
And then you can put it on Instagram. Job done.
Well, I'm looking at their marketing photos on their webpage right now for SDR versus HDR, and they're in the Dolomites. Maybe they've gone through the turnstile to get these. I'm not sure. And the HDR one, it looks like AI. Yeah. Because the SDR looks like a really nice photograph. It's one of the refuges in the Dolomites. Okay. And then next to it, they've got the HDR version where the windows are all lit up bright yellow, and it looks fake. Mm-hmm. So the image itself is actually worse than the original image that they've got in there. And
so to summarise, Ruth, this is a fantastic camera, but the Mark II, I think, has gone in the wrong direction. And it's just basically, I think it's a camera not for photographers, but for people who don't really care about learning photography and becoming better skilled at using a camera. They just want the quick and easy fix. Press a button, job done. I'm not a fan.
I think kind of like Leica, it's kind of becoming a status symbol more than...
Well, they do a limited edition called the Earth Explorer, and it comes in tundra grey or tundra green.
But what colour is the shutter button? Is it like red?
It's still orange, so you got an orange shutter button, and on the side, this particular camera on their webpage is 0001. Ooh, so they're doing a limited edition. So if you're listening, Hasselblad, I'll have 007, please.
All right, well, if you're interested in any of the cameras or any of the gear items we were talking about in this section, do check out the show notes on whatever platform you're tuning in on. Also links on there, of course, to the news stories that we mentioned earlier on, so you can have a wee look if you're interested. Next month's Photography Online, or I should say this month's, out today if you're listening on the first day, or the first Sunday of the month, I should say. The Great British Icons Photo Challenge. We are heading towards a conclusion. The guys are aiming to shoot a classic car and a cricket match. I'm not sure if they're doing that together or separately, but I'm sure James will be happy. There's cricket involved there. We're looking at teleconverters and deciding if they are worth your money, and we will also be looking at how to print a digital negative in a traditional darkroom style. I filmed that one not long ago. That was really interesting. So do check those out. But thank you so much for listening in to the podcast today. Thank you to the guys, James and Marcus. Congrats again, James, on your win, which is win number... I think you've won 4 out of 5, James, that you've done, which is
Well, the
good.
funny thing is, I won by getting I think, because I've still got the answers here, I was about 15 years or 18 years out with the Magnum.
Yeah.
I still won. I was wrong about the number of people in New York, the workers. So, yeah.
Yeah,
so
but
being
still.
wrong proves to being right.
Basically, James, you lost, but I'm a bigger loser.
Correct. There's only one true loser in here, and that's poor old Ruth, because she has to put up with us two.
I wasn't even going to mention Marcus this time. I thought we've played this out too much, but he's bringing it on himself. Anyway, thank you for listening in, you guys as well. Until next time, take good care, and most of all, take good photos.
You've been listening to the Photography Online podcast in partnership with Kingjoy Tripods.